Hello and welcome to Weather Impact Live. I'm meteorologist Lee Southwing, and that is meteorologist Robert Spetta out of First Coast News in Jacksonville, Florida. So whether you're watching from the First Coast News Market, and you know who we are, or you're watching from the Tampa area, we welcome you. And we have a new update as of 2 o'clock, the 2 p.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center. Robert, we now have a medium chance of tropical formation in the next 7 days.
And I don't think that's surprising at all. We've been watching this area for a few days now. Yesterday, it kind of blew up a lot of convection around it. I think it's a little misleading because at first a lot of people are looking at this going, oh, that looks like a hurricane. You got to remember this is kind of a mid-level low.
Yes.
But it seems like it's starting to show signs of maybe working down a little bit towards the surface here, Lee.
And our friends in the Tampa Bay area have already received a lot of rain out of this. Now a lot of people in the Jacksonville area sitting and waiting to see the pockets of heavy rain that we've been talking about. But you can see there what Robert was just talking about. It's spinning. You see the rotation. But now with the new update from the National Hurricane Center, they have admitted that yes, okay, that area is really starting to form and organize a bit more. So this area is still light when it comes to winds. Like the associated winds are light. The showers and thunderstorms are still disorganized, but that surface low is really starting to form now over the Gulf, and so that is why they have bumped it up to a medium chance of tropical formation. They say, hey, gradual development is possible. It could become a tropical depression as it moves to the north or to the north-northwest over the next couple of days. And I think whether it develops or not, we can still all expect heavy rain. The Tampa Bay region is going to expect a lot more heavy rain than we are here in Jacksonville. Already have seen a good bit of that rain. But look at this, Robert. So we have a model disagreement. This one model that we're looking at right now is called the graph. It's an in-house model. It's high resolution. It's what we use to look at daily thunderstorm chance. It's really out to about 72 hours. So it has a lot more detail associated with it. And it really wants to organize this system and really wrap it up and maybe have it become a tropical depression or a tropical storm. And as it does so, it pulls it west, which means later on Monday and especially into Tuesday, we're a lot drier here across at least the peninsula of Florida, not the Panhandle, but the peninsula. Meanwhile, other models like the European model has kept it very disorganized, and that means it stays closer to the Big Bend region, and that means even more rain for us Monday into Tuesday.
So, and just from a purely, I'm going to sit back and try to be a non-meteorologist here.
Okay.
And I'm going to look at this and go, well, you just showed me two of these different models. And by the way, whenever you get something on your phone and you have your app, like your standard phone app now, here in Tampa and in Jacksonville, we have our meteorologists. We actually update that stuff. But your standard phone app simply takes a model. And each one of the models, they, first off, the first one we showed you here, are high resolution, as basically think of if you're watching high resolution TV. You got that 1080 pixels on there, while the European model, the second one's more of like a 360 pixel. Okay, that's the difference in resolution. But the other thing is, one of them probably, I think a high resolution one takes into account more of surface heating, water temperature out there, and that's why we use a lot for your daily thunderstorms, while the Euro probably taking more into account the jet stream further towards north. The point is, both of these models take in different things into account, and you also need very good initialization data. And one big thing I did just see here with the latest update from the National Hurricane Center is tomorrow on Sunday, the recon, likely coming out of Keesler Air Force Base in there in Mississippi, the hurricane hunters are going to be flying out there. I know I say hurricane hunters, but they fly into these things to get their initial assessment. And if we get that initializing data, I do believe probably tomorrow the guidance is going to start to come together, because right now the models are basically trying to make this forecast with their eyes closed. We don't have reporting sites over the water there. So once we get that data, I do believe we're going to start to get things kind of coming together a little bit tighter here, Lee.
Absolutely. So yeah, this again is the European model. It keeps it very broad, but I mean, with the high resolution model, that is really showing something that's not only forming, but Robert, if you look towards Tuesday, that's trying to make a landfall as well. Not near us, but perhaps near Mobile.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we absolutely have to get the hurricane hunters out there. We got to figure out what's happening with this storm. And then it will help us here locally to figure out our rain chances. Are we dry on Tuesday? or are we seeing widespread tropical downpours leading to the risk of more flooding?
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
I was just going to show you all this. This is expected rainfall totals from the Weather Prediction Center, and they are doing what I think so many meteorologists are doing, and kind of going in between, saying, hey, we know that the Gulf Coast is going to receive a good bit of rain, and we'll just kind of fade it out the farther away you get from the Gulf Coast. So for the Jacksonville area, perhaps now only up to a 1/4 inch of rain total. That's lower than it was showing even earlier this morning. And then in the Tampa Bay area, no surprise, the closer to the water you are, the closer to the Gulf you are, really, the higher your rain chances are. But it even started backing off on some of that rain now for Sarasota. And I think that just kind of proves the fact that they are also expecting this to perhaps organize a bit more and move west a bit more, which would dry us out more. You can see a lot of rain near places like Panama City Beach expected here when it comes to total rainfall over the next 5 days.
I think for Tampa and the Gulf Coast area in general, one of our concerns, at least over the next few days, is it's not going to be like a rain shield, but as we've seen in the model there, if we do get any of these storms kind of kicking off, the big way we could get rain kind of tallying up over the duration of a few days is if we start getting what we call training, one storm after another. Actually seen Bobby talking about that this morning in one of his videos, just saying, there is that possibility of some of these showers coming on shore, lining up one after another, and that would be kind of the biggest impact here on the Gulf Coast based on the data we're seeing right now, where a lot of this rainfall does come from, those 1 to 2 to 3 inches. So, and maybe not even so much for Tampa, but if you're planning on maybe heading out to Steenhatchee here on Sunday and Monday, you're going.
It's scalloping season. It's scalloping season. People want to go scalloping.
No, it's not going to be great weather for it.
No.
And that would be one of the issues. One round after another in some of these coastal areas, a little bit further there towards the north, around the Big Bend area.
Yeah, that's what my family goes scalloping every year near Steenhatchee. Usually, we roll the dice even more and go late August. We have been run out by hurricanes before, but. Yeah, already here in July. And, speaking of July, let's take a look at our tropical regions where we normally see activity this time of year. And this isn't uncommon. The Gulf is one of those areas that we can watch for tropical formation. And they even start to highlight areas out in the Atlantic. Earlier, a couple of days, I think even up till yesterday, up till yesterday afternoon, we had 2 areas in the Atlantic basin that we were watching. But that one out in the Atlantic, way off the coast of Africa, really, way out there in the Atlantic, has now dissipated. It's not forming. So our focus was always, of course, on the Gulf system, but now it really is, and now it has been bumped up to that 40% chance of tropical formation.
As of 2 o'clock, we got that orange color on here?
Yep.
Okay.
So at 8 a.m., we went 20% in the next 2 days and 30% in the next 7 days. And now at 2 p.m., we're at 30 and 40. I do expect it to go up a little bit.
Now, I want to address I've seen people that work in weather kind of get this wrong too. This right here, that kind of big old, and sometimes I slip and even call it this, that is not a cone. This is the National Hurricane Center saying that within the next 7 days, anywhere there in the orange, a storm could form off. So it's not saying that the storm's going to go west, although some of our models do say that. It's saying that somewhere within that area, that's where the likelihood of tropical cyclone formation is. So just make sure that you keep in mind that this could still mean this could drift towards the north and then maybe form up and kick off back towards the north and east. There still is some disparity in the guidance here, and this is why we always say this is the kind of chance of development within this area versus a forecast as well. But as you've seen there, some of the guidance does take it towards the north, some keeps it disorganized towards the northeast. So that's kind of what the NHC is trying to say, though, is somewhere in that area over the next few days we could see something kind of a spin up here, Lee.
And we got a couple of packages. Our viewers here at First Coast have seen some of these recently, but since we're joining in with Tampa, as we're starting to talk about, as we're starting to see the season get more active, we're going to start talking more about things like invest or tropical waves or things like that. So really quick, let's go get a refresher on what the tropical terminology is, the phrases to know during hurricane season, so you can just kind of stay informed with us as we now continue into eventually August and then September as we approach the peak of hurricane season. Tropical wave is a term you hear frequently before a storm forms. A tropical wave is an unorganized area of storms traveling west out of Africa. These are important to follow because around 85% of major hurricanes begin as tropical waves. Another common term you hear is invest. Invest stands for investigative area. When a tropical wave becomes more organized, the National Hurricane Center will designate the area of disturbed weather as an invest. Each invest is given a number from 90 to 99. For example, Invest 90L. The L tells us the system is in the Atlantic. This also allows the NHC to run ensemble models or spaghetti models on these systems. You might also hear the term cyclone during hurricane season. A cyclone is a blanket term for any area of low pressure that has a closed circulation. Hurricanes, tropical storms, and tropical depressions are all cyclones because they are closed areas of low pressure. Meteorologist Lee Southwick, First Coast News, on your side. So, Robert, you recently, we're always kind of staying in touch with the National Hurricane Center.
Yeah.
You got to talk to the director, the NHC director, Michael Brennan, about, you talked about many things, but you had earlier mentioned that this is not a cone. This is an area of formation.
Yeah.
But the cones are getting better and better.
Yeah, that too.
They're getting smaller and smaller. So while we don't have a cone yet, this could potentially become a potential tropical cyclone, especially depending on what the hurricane hunters find tomorrow. And then we could have a cone from there. And so I would like to now hear, we're going to listen into a part of your conversation with him,
Nice.
where he talked about how the forecast cone, or that cone of air, whatever you want to call it, is actually getting smaller and smaller.
Forecast challenges that go with a smaller cone of air and communicating to the broader public.
Yeah, so the cone really represents the likely path of the center of the storm. So this is the forecast for Milton here across the Gulf and across Florida and in the Western Atlantic. And these dots represent our official forecast of where we expect the center to be. And then the cone tells you where the center will be about 2/3 of the time. But it's based on our track forecast errors over the previous 5 years. So we had a pretty successful year for forecasting track in 2024. We set record low errors on average. So as those numbers come into the calculation and we drop off the earlier year, the cone is going to be about 5% smaller. So really not a huge change, probably wouldn't even be really perceptible to most people. But it does indicate that on average, track forecast errors are a lot smaller than they were, say 20 years ago. If you look back at a cone from 2005, it's going to be much, much bigger. It'd probably cover most of the state of Florida. But that does create a messaging challenge in the fact that, people need to realize that the cone just tells you where the center is going to be, likely. It doesn't tell you where the impacts are going to be. So the cone is just sort of a broad scale look at where the center of the tropical storm or hurricane is forecast or is likely to be. The watches and warnings and the other information for wind and storm surge, flooding, tornadoes tell you about the hazards. It would be really difficult, if not impossible, to indicate all that hazard information on a single graphic. So that's why we have, different graphics that convey those different hazards and what those risks are.
And speaking of
Interesting. It's really great to see, as he said, you compare it to a cone from 2005. It's amazing how much smaller those cones have become.
And that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is that when you see that cone of air and it goes out the 5 days, it's not the forecasters at the NHC saying, okay, this is my uncertainty. That is it's always going to be like that as far as the amount of air. It is a direct average of how much the NHC kind of gets it wrong the year prior, if that makes any sense. So back in 2002, the air was like 500 miles on the 5-day outlook. Now it's down to like 300 miles. It's gone down quite significantly. So it's really a factor of that cone of air and just the improvement every single year on the forecast. And just a shout out to the NHC. And some people say, well, you've always got it 50% wrong. Well, there you go. The facts tell you each year we are getting better at forecasting, and that's a direct result of the technology advancing and also the science behind meteorology.
Absolutely. We know more and more, and there's still a lot to learn. We understand that, and that's part of why we like it or love it, because we want to get it right, and we want to get it the most accurate. And of course, everyone working very hard all across the world. You got the National Hurricane Center, but you have the people with the PhDs who are working on the models and help us forecast better as well. Now, again, we're not saying this is going to become anything, but there is a medium chance now from the National Hurricane Center, a 40% chance of a tropical depression forming here in the next couple of days. And if it becomes a tropical storm, if we could pull up our graphics here, the next name on the list, if we could get that up, almost, there we go, is Bertha.
Bertha.
So here's a list of all the names for 2026. Don't forget, we already had Arthur. A lot of people in Florida have actually forgotten that. They're like, when are we going to get our first storm? Maybe us here locally. But it's like, no, we have. That brought record rainfall to Louisiana. But I understand why here and in Florida it didn't directly impact us. Now, again, we're not saying it will, but if it does form into a tropical storm, it will be named Bertha. Do you have a favorite name on this list here?
Do I have a favorite name on this list? I do like Isaias. I remember that storm from, 6 years ago?
6 years ago, yeah. 2020.
It just stands out. Gonzalo. But I think Bertha is definitely... Bertha just... no offense to anybody named Bertha. Just reminds me, it's like an old classy lady name or something. I don't know.
But I thought you were saying something offensive. You're like,
Nah,
no offense, but
I don't.
classy.
Well, I said old, and I don't want any young people
That
being
makes
like,
sense.
I'm not old. So, yeah.
I like that you said you remember Isaias from 6 years ago, because our next package that we're going to run is how hurricanes are named. So we do have a revolving list. If a name gets retired, it has to be replaced. I get people all the time saying, hey, can you submit my name? And I don't have those connections. There are people at the World Meteorological Organization that pick the names. So let's take a listen into how that happens. Every hurricane season, we have a list of names that tropical cyclones that season will be named. But how are those names decided? They're picked by the World Meteorological Organization, and that organization needs to follow some guidelines. The name has to be short in character length for ease of communication. It also has to be easy to pronounce, and it has to have significance, and it has to be familiar to different languages that could be impacted by that storm. So across the basin, those names have to be referenced to the languages spoken in that basin. So in the Atlantic, it's English, French, and Spanish. Also, it has to be unique. So, for example, a name already used in the Pacific Basin cannot be used in the Atlantic Basin. Then they put those names in alphabetical order. You'll notice that there are no Q, U, X, Y, or Z names. Those names are less common and a bit harder to understand across the languages. They will also rotate male and female names. So if the A name is a male name, the B name would be a female name. And those names are recycled every 6 years. So for example, the 2024 names will be used again in 2030, with an exception. You can retire names. Hurricane names are retired if they're particularly devastating or catastrophic. And so the 2024 names that were retired were Beryl, Helene, and Milton. So in 2030, those names will be replaced with Brianna, with Holly, and with Miguel. Those names were selected by the World Meteorological Organization. I'm meteorologist Lee Southwick. First Coast News on your side. So today is July 18th. Where do you think we stack up with the season averages?
Ooh, I would say we're almost on track.
Gave it away.
Gave it away.
Yes.
Oh, we're almost on track.
We are almost on track, if not slightly below average, behind, which was the forecast for this year. So yes, normally we get our B storm around July 17th. Now, A storm Arthur was very close to June 20th. I believe it happened around the 18th, if I'm remembering correctly. So we were very close to that one. And then on average, and this is a 30-year average, the B storm arrives around July 17th. So if this does become Bertha, we'll still be on track for averages. Our C storm really doesn't arrive until August 3rd. Now, of course, these are just averages. 30-year averages, it changes year to year. We have seen Beryl, which happened in late June to early July. We were just talking about that hurricane season. So on average, we usually get our first hurricane August 11th. And if you reference back to our third named storm, that happens August 3rd. So if we're looking at all the averages, usually our first 3 storms are tropical storms. And then the hurricanes will arrive more so in August. Again, just averages.
And I know just as people in general, and we're all guilty of this, we always have like a short memory. Because I think a lot of people think back of Beryl, last year?
2 years.
2 years. Oh, goodness. See? I just proved it. So 2 years ago. And like that was a extreme anomaly. Just having a major hurricane, a Cat 5 so early in the year. Our storm season doesn't typically start to really ramp up until August and into September 10th, of course, being kind of the peak of hurricane season out here. So you even see right here, you can kind of just see where it really starts to kick off is by mid-July. So it's not until about this time we start to see things kind of get a little bit more active out there, which is thus, we got a broad mid-level low that we're talking about now that could form up, mainly because now the water temperatures have caught up. Shear starts to back off towards the north. There is still a little dry air kind of fighting against this thing from trying to develop. But that's the point there, is that it's still not another 2 months till we actually get to that point where we are at that peak of season.
Right. So we are, technically on track so far for the year. And I think something to note again for us here in the Tampa Bay region and in the Jacksonville region is that whether this develops or not, our impacts are staying very similar. If anything, if it forms, our impacts go down just a little bit. So while, of course, we don't want anyone to deal with a storm, especially if it's making landfall anywhere on the Gulf Coast, it looks like if it strengthens, it moves more to the west. And then we do start to see that drying pattern here for portions of Florida, especially by Monday and really, really into Tuesday. So I'm thinking right now we do a deep dive into rain chances coming up both on the First Coast and in Tampa Bay when we'll get a closer look at our models. So today, Saturday, later on this afternoon and into this evening, I-95 corridor, you could get some heavy rain out of that. Sunday, here at First Coast News, we have a weather impact alert in effect because we could potentially see some downpours, some tropical downpours. Notice that it is not raining on everyone. It is not a washout. I've been saying all day today, Robert, for our viewers here on the First Coast, don't cancel your outdoor plans on Sunday, Monday, even though we have the weather impact alert. We're just letting you all know that, hey, any downpours that do move through, they could definitely be impactful because that could be blinding rain, which is dangerous on the roads. It could also cause potentially isolated flooding, but it's not going to rain on everyone and it's not going to rain all day. So for those of you in Jacksonville, don't cancel your outdoor plans, but we could see some of those heavy tropical downpours. Now, I think it's a bit higher here in the Tampa Bay region already. They've already seen a lot of rain, more rain on the way, especially later on today. We'll see if a few of those bands wrap through really tonight. So that's one of those, I don't know if it's appropriate to call it a band yet because it's not
I
that
hear
low
you, yeah.
level of circulation is forming, but we're gonna see
waves of showers.
Yeah,
I know we're getting technical here,
it's
but
like a band that kind of wraps on shore. Like you can kind of tell it has those tropical characteristics. It's trying to at least. But yes, so heavier downpours, tropical moisture, moving on shore, moving from south to north. So that once again would be blinding rain, isolated flooding pockets. We head into Sunday, waking up to more of those showers out there, downpours. Once again, moving north, I think that would absolutely cause the risk or create the risk for some flooding once again. We move through Sunday night, dealing with another round of that heavy rain. Okay, what about Monday? We're starting the work week, maybe for the morning commute. Some of you dealing with some showers. And then, let me back that up again. Monday around lunchtime, dealing with heavier rain. And then as we go towards Tuesday, though, this is the model that had it really wrapping up and strengthening and moving west. So that would be drying out on Tuesday there as well.
And let's I know we've already said this a few times, but I do want to remind everybody this is not the gospel here. This is just kind of what the latest guidance is showing us at this time. And I think that right there, especially for Tampa, does have a pretty decent handle on it because we already got that broad mid-level low. You're already seeing that rain go by and over the course of the next 48 hours. So especially Sunday, if you got those plans out there on the West Coast, you can go to space.
Sorry about that. I was trying to zoom in. I did the wrong thing. There we go.
But also, just have those backup plans ready to go. That's one of the big things because, as Lee just mentioned, the atmosphere is going to be very soupy. This is still a very soupy tropical atmosphere. So once you get those showers developing, that just means more moisture can be held in the atmosphere, and thus, when it does want to rain, the heavens are going to open up here, and you're going to get some of those local decent downpours, and you don't want to be caught out there, especially if you're going boating. Let's say you're going to do a little boating out there in the Gulf. Could be a little messy there for you.
Yeah, I think I just heard from our director that we have 4 minutes left, but I thought, are we not doing the 27-minute stream? So, okay, so we'll keep going a little bit more and just kind of assess. This is what's happening right now. This is current radar. It's 2:27 as of this recording. I know we're going to replay this later on as well. So if you're watching this on delay, this is stopping right around 2:26, 2:27 p.m. And that is
got multiple lows in there.
Yeah, I'm going to try to, let me zoom in again. There we go. It's a much better zoom. Yeah. Do you want to talk about what you mean by that?
So
let me slow this down.
I'm seeing multiple kind of little spins in there. So it's more of a broad low. It's not terribly consolidated. And that's important to note because the machine of a tropical system really needs a centralized low pressure area. These things are like engines. And if all your pistons are not firing on the same level, then it's just not going to work. So what I see right now is I see some rotation off the coast of Tampa. Got a little bit of an area of low pressure due west of Fort Myers. There's multiple little vortices kind of spinning up in this. Within this overall broad mid-level low. What does this mean? Well, I mean, just in general, the broad middle of a low, a lot of convection, that is conducive for cyclone development, but this is not there yet. So if you might be looking at this going, why aren't they calling it a tropical depression? Why isn't it a high chance? That's the reason why. It still is a bit disorganized just by looking at this. Now, if you're sitting there on the beach right now in Tampa or around some of those coastal areas there, it doesn't make a difference for you. You still already got the convection. You got those passing showers out there. This is more as going forward. This really needs to kind of consolidate and get a bit more organized before we start to see it. Now, what I am kind of interested in, though, if we do see this consolidate and we do get a defined low pressure center, which could happen tomorrow when the hurricane hunters are out there,
right?
And this is tapped away from that shear, as our high resolution in-house model, that graph model was showing, this could start to take off. And so I'm trying to not hype this. We want to give you both perspectives of this. If it stays weak like this, energy spread out, just a rainmaker. But if it does consolidate, which is a very real possibility here, it could take off because those sea surface temperatures over the water, right where that's kind of showing, I think right now around 87, 88 degrees. I mean, that's a hot tub water out there. And that would be plenty of energy for this to try to spin up. And as you see right here, once again, a little counter with it. But if this does strengthen, that means Jacksonville would likely see less rainfall versus if it stays a big spread out piece of energy. But though we got less than a minute left here, Lee, so you want to summarize this out here?
Yeah, I think, the important thing to note is that flooding rain is a potential for everyone that we're talking to right now, Tampa and Jacksonville, but it's not as widespread in the Jacksonville metro area. Just know that your weather teams, we are all tracking this very closely for you, and we will keep you updated. Right now, medium chance of tropical formation. There's still a lot of uncertainty, so you need to stay updated, and we will keep you updated. Thanks for joining us.